Welcome back everyone for another session of Functional Skills Maths. As a starter activity, we're going to do Microsoft Form, and what I'd like everyone to do as usual is scan the QR code or click on the link sent out to you by your tutors regarding the starter activity quiz. This will obviously test the knowledge of what you've been doing over the past couple of weeks. So today we're going to be looking at conversion of numbers to convert between units of length, weight, capacity, money, and time in the same system. And also we're going to try and solve functional skills worded problems involving conversion of metric units, money, and time. So the first activity, I want you to list as many units of measure that you can think of. One I've already done for you, centimeter. Go ahead, make a list of what other units of measurements there are that you already know of. Let's see how many you can jot down right now. So metric units, before we move on to the main thing, let's get the basics out of the way. What is the metric system? Well, the metric system is a system of measurement which is based on powers of tens and uses the following prefixes. What's a prefix? A prefix is usually a word or a number that's placed in front of the main word. You need to learn three main prefixes. So the first prefix that you need to learn is kilo. Kilo means multiplying it by 1,000. Whatever a kilo is, it means 1,000 of it. The second prefix that you will need to learn is centi, C-E-N-T-I. Centi is basically meaning 100th. Another way of saying 100th is dividing it by 100. That's 100th. Notice the DTH at the end of the word 100th. And finally, the last prefix that's quite important to know, it's milli. And milli means 1,000th. 1,000th. Again, in other words, what you're doing is you're dividing it by 1,000. Right, now that we've got the prefixes out of the way, which is very important for everyone to learn, the next thing that you need to know is the base unit. What is a base unit? The base unit is the different measurement term that we use to measure something. So for example, the base unit for length, how do we measure length? There is a base unit for it, and the base unit is meter. Okay, so we are going to put those prefixes at the top, whether it's kilo, centi, or milli, we'd put it in front of the word meter, and that would give us a different understanding of the various different measurements. Now, another base unit for mass. Mass, in other words, is weight. This is going to be gram. The base unit is gram. And finally, another one that you need to know is the base unit for capacity. Now, the base unit for capacity is liter, and again, we are going to use prefixes in front of that to give us different understandings of liquids and volume. So it's crucial that everybody understands and everybody knows the three prefixes that are the basic aspects and the base units that are the basic aspects. It will help us in solving all the questions that come up later on. So let's have a quick look at metric conversions now. Starting with length, the base unit for length, as mentioned before in the previous slide, is meter. If we were to start off with km, km is an abbreviation for kilometer. So kilometer, km, and we wanted to convert that to meters. Well, we know that there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Therefore, to convert from km to m, we have to multiply by 1,000. We have to multiply the digit, whatever digit we have, by 1,000. Thereafter, from meter, we want to go to centimeter. Abbreviation for centimeter is cm. If we want to convert it from meter to centimeter, we'd have to multiply it by a further 100. And after that, we also have another measurement, millimeter. So milli, as mentioned previously, it means 1,000. But from centimeter to millimeter, all we need to do is multiply by 10. There you go. So whatever digit you have, in order to convert from one measurement to another metric measurement, we just have to follow and understand that we multiply it by a certain number at the top. Now, what about if we have to do it the other way? Well, if we have to actually, for example, change from millimeter to centimeter, what do we do then? In those circumstances, we just do the opposite of what we did at the top. So along the top in red, as you can see, what we did is multiply by 10. But along the bottom, from millimeter to centimeter, following the arrow, which way are we going? We're actually dividing. And what about from centimeter to meter? If we are actually going from centimeter to meter, again, we'd do the opposite of what we did at the top, which is to now divide by 100. And finally, to change from meter to kilometer, what we do, the opposite of what we did at the top, is now to divide by 1,000. So let's have a quick example. Okay, so here we have convert 3 meters to centimeters. So we start off with where 3 meters is, and we're converting it into centimeters. So we are following, make sure you understand which way you're following the arrow. So from meter to centimeter is obviously going to be the red arrow along the top. Therefore, we'd have to multiply it by 100. So our answer should be 3 times 100 equals 300 centimeters. Right? Okay, let's do another one. Convert 5.7 kilometers to meters. Again, follow the arrow. Which way are we going? Are we going to follow the red arrow, the green arrow? Quite obviously, the red arrow. So if we're following the red arrow, we've got 5.7 jotted down, and then we're just converting that to meters by multiplying it by 1,000 equals 5,700 meters. Here's another one. Convert 3.6 kilometers to centimeter. Now notice we are actually going to do two processes. From kilometers, we're going to have to first change to meters, and from then meters, we're going to change to centimeters. So following the arrow along the red, so from first and foremost, kilometers to meters, what do we have to do? 3.6 times 1,000, which is 3,600 meters, and then we have to times it by 100 to convert it into centimeters, and we eventually end up with 360,000 centimeters. With that knowledge in mind, let's now try to solve a word problem. A racetrack measures 400 meters. An athlete runs 2.6 kilometers around the track. How many laps is this? So you can break this down and solve this question in different ways. The method I'm going to show you is first and foremost trying to understand that 400 meters is 0.4 kilometers. Because what you will notice is that the 400 meters and the 2.6 kilometers, these are different units. We have to have a common unit. So the common unit I'm going to stick with is kilometers. Now, if I'm going to stick with kilometers, I already know we have 2.6 kilometers, so we don't need to do anything with that. It's just the 400 meters that we need to change into 0.4 kilometers. Once we have the two units the same, we can continue and proceed with the next part. So the number of laps, well, that's quite pretty easy to do, because all we need to do now is take 2.6 kilometers and divide it by 0.4. And when we do that, our final answer is 6.5 laps. Let's have a look at another one. Okay, so the following day, the athlete completes 8 laps. How many kilometers is this? Well, we know that each lap is 400 meters. Therefore, 400 times 8, and then we can convert that into kilometers. Or we can actually just stick with 0.4, as we already know, and times that 0.4 by 8. And when we do that, we will get 3.2 kilometers. So the next form of measurement that we're going to learn about is mass, in other words, about weight. One of the largest units of weight that we need to learn about in functional skills is ton. There are 1,000 kilograms in 1 ton. Therefore, to convert from ton to kilogram, we multiply it by 1,000. And after the kilogram, we also have gram. Gram is remember, the base unit in mass, base unit in weight, and there are 1,000 grams in a kilogram. And thereafter we also have milligram, and there is 1,000 milligrams in a gram. In order to convert it, we have to multiply it by 1,000. Now, if we are actually converting from smaller unit to a larger unit, we do the opposite of what we've done at the top. So from milligram to gram, you divide it by 1,000. From gram to kilogram, divide it by further 1,000. And from kilogram to ton, also divide by 1,000. It's probably one of the easiest things to remember from amongst the conversion charts. Now let's have a look at a few examples. Example number one, we have converting of 5 grams to milligrams. Well, we go according to the chart and we see that the arrow goes towards the right hand side and it's multiplied by 1,000. Okay, so following the red arrow, and that would become 5 times 1,000 is 5,000 milligrams. Example number two, convert 2.9 kg to grams. Again, we're following the red arrow and it will be multiplication by 1,000. That will give us 2.9 times 1,000 equals 2,900 grams. Then we have another example here. This example is convert 7.6 tons to milligrams. Now, for this, we have to remember that we're not just going from ton to kilogram, but from ton to kilogram, and then we're going to gram, and finally, we're going to milligram. So for each of these 3 stages that we have to cover, we need to excuse me, we need to multiply by 1,000. So let's do it in stage. You can, for those of you who are capable, do it all in one go straight to the end. But equally, we can also, just to make it easier for ourselves, do it in stages. So let's start off with 7.6 tons times by 1,000. That's 7,600 kilograms. Times that by 1,000 and we get 7.6 million grams. And times that by 1,000 and we end up with 7.6 billion milligrams. Now, that's a simple way of working it out, but it'll be very, very important just to remember that chart. Now let's try and work out some worded problems. So a bag of flour is 2 kilograms. Each cake needs 250 grams of flour. How many cakes can you make? Now, before we proceed, we need to make sure that we have the common unit rather than having 2 separate different units, the common unit. So we either stick with kilograms or we stick with grams. So in this example, what I'm going to do, because it's fairly easy, I'm just going to convert the 2 kilograms into grams. Therefore, I have 2,000 grams. Now, it's very simple and straightforward. All I need to do is find out how many of these 250 grams will fit into the 2,000 grams. Simple process is through division. So 2,000 divided by 250, you can use your umbrella method, or if you know from the top of your head through the cancellation process, your answer would be 8 cakes. So how many cakes can you make? You can make 8 cakes. Let's have a look at another problem. A baker needs to bake 5 cakes. So how many kilograms of flour do they need? Here, once again, each for 5 cakes, we're trying to find out how many. So we know that 5 times 250 grams is 1,250 grams. Thereafter, we divide the final answer, 1,250, divide that by 1,000 to get our final answer in kilograms. Bear in mind, the question is asking us how many kilogram of flour does this person need. So our final answer would be 1.25 kgs or 1.25 kilograms. Finally, we come to capacity. Now, capacity is another word for measuring volume and measuring liquids. Now, when it comes to volume and capacity, the base unit that we've learnt about is liters, L for liters. And that can actually be divided into centiliters. And how many centiliters in a liter? There is 100. So in order to convert liters into centiliters, multiply by 100, and then we have something even smaller, which is milliliters. ML is the abbreviation. To convert something from centiliters to milliliters, you just multiply it by 10. Equally, if we want to go from milliliters to centiliters, we do the opposite, which is divide by 10. And from centiliters to liters, we do the opposite, which is to divide by 100. Let's have a look at some examples now. Here, first example, convert 9 liters to centiliters. So you take 9 and you multiply it by 100, which is 900 centiliters. Example number 2, 90 milliliters to centiliters. So we take the centiliters, 90 milliliters, and we are actually this time around dividing by 10, which will give us the answer 9 centiliters. Finally, convert 15,300 milliliters to liters. So what we're doing this in 2 stages. First, we're going to convert it to centiliters, and then we'll convert it to liters. So first and foremost, 15,300 divided by 10 is 1,530 centiliters. And thereafter, we're going to divide it by a further 100 to give us 15.3 liters. Now, we did that in 2 stages. You can actually do that in 1 stage as well if you know that there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. Let's do some worded questions now. A can of Fanta is 330 milliliters. How many liters is 7 cans? Now, what we notice straight away, we have milliliters and we have liters, 2 different sets of units, and we need a common one. And one of the easiest things for us to do is find out, first and foremost, 330 times 7 cans will give us 2,310 milliliters. Now we can convert 2,310 milliliters into liters, and we know how to do that because we know that there are 1,000 milliliters in a liter. So 2,310 divided by 1,000 will give us the answer 2.31 liters. Furthermore, let's have a look at this one. Okay, so level 2 learners should be able to answer this quite easily. It is recommended to drink at least 2 liters of water a day. Joe has the following: a drink. So Joe has the following to drink: 1.2 liters, 350 milliliters, and half a liter. Joe drank the recommended amount? Now he needs to drink at least 2 liters of water a day, and what we are doing here is we've got to first and foremost find out that the total of what he has drank, is it the recommended amount? Now again, we have liters, we have milliliters, and half a liter as well. So first and foremost, what would be good is that if we take the 350 milliliters and put that into liter as well, because the milliliter one, that is the only unit that is different from the other two. The other two are already in liters. So 350 divided by 1,000 is 0.35 liters, and to find out how much a half a liter is, well, 1 divided by 2 is 0.5 liters, and then what we do, we just add all 3 measurements up. So what do we get? 1.2 liters, as we already have in the question, 0.35 liters, what we've just worked out, and 0.5 liters, as we've just converted what and found out what half a liter is. The total, it gives us 2.05 liters. So back to the question, has Joe drank the recommended amount? Yes, he has. So what I'd like you all to do now is get a pen and paper out. I'm going to show you certain conversions that you need to do. I'd like you to actually work them out in your notepads, and then we'll compare the answers together. So first and foremost, we have to remember what I've written at the top, which is to convert from a larger metric unit to a smaller one, we need to multiply. Okay, so something that needs to be stressed because people get confused. So it's multiply. So from larger to smaller, we need to multiply. So complete the following, please. 34 centimeters equals how many millimeters? 340 millimeters. Brilliant. Next one. 0.4 liters equals how many milliliters? Okay, if you got the answer right, 400 milliliters. Well done. Next one. 7.3 kilograms equals how many grams? Good. If you actually said 7,300. Next one. 54.8 centiliters. Wow. Centiliters to milliliters. Remember what we have to do. We have to multiply by 10, which will give us 548 milliliters. Next one. 0.0471 kilometers equals how many meters? 47.1. Okay, because we're multiplying by 1,000. Next one. 0.3428 meters equals how many millimeters? Once again, meter is the base unit, and milli, as I've mentioned before, is a thousandth. So how many millimeters in a meter? 1,000. Therefore, we have to multiply this 0.3428 by 1,000, which will give us 342.8. Next one, 23.51 grams equals how many milligrams? Once again, okay, we are going from a large unit to a smaller unit, and how many milligrams in a gram is 1,000. Therefore, our final answer will be 23,510 milligrams. And finally, 0.085 meters equals how many millimeters? Multiply that by 1,000, and our answer is 85. Now, very important thing to understand here, to convert from smaller metric unit to a larger one, what do we need to do? We need to divide by either 10, 100 or 1,000. Now, I've got those digits and numbers and conversions for you to do. Please do them in your notepads and let's go through them. So if you've got your answers already, 920 millimeters is 92 centimeters. 530 grams is 0.53 kilograms. 3,460 milliliters equals 3.46 liters. 43.1 centimeters is 0.431 meters. 65,800 meters is 65.8 kilometers. 526 milligrams is 0.526 grams. 4,539 centiliters is 45.39 liters. And finally, 87 kilograms equals 0.087 tons. So now that we've got the basics out of the way, let's put our pen to paper and start working away. Open up your workbooks and answer all questions from pages 3 to 5. Another aspect of conversion is about time conversion and coming across conversion graphs. First and foremost, I'd like you to put these units of time in order from shortest to longest. By default, what this would mean is that you need to know what each one means. Now, the next important part is to understand what quarter past and quarter to are all about. The word that we use, quarter of an hour. Okay, so a full entire clock face is divided into 4 parts. 1/4 of that is when 15 minutes has passed. So decimalized 0.25 of an hour. Half past of any hour is when 30 minutes has passed. And that is 2/4 make an entire half. And decimalized manner, it's 0.5 hours. 0.5 hours is the same as 30 minutes, which is the same as half an hour. And finally, 3/4 of an hour. 3/4 of an hour is basically when 45 minutes have passed. And in a decimal fashion, it is 0.75 of an hour. Now, let's attempt this worded question. A typical question in the exam, it might come like this. A machine takes 4 minutes and 10 seconds to make a toy car. How long would it take to make 18 toy cars? So if one machine takes 4 minutes and 10 seconds, how long would it take 18 cars? That's pretty simple, straightforward. First thing that we do, we try and find out 18 cars, how many whole minutes is that? So 4 times 18 is 72 minutes. Then we've got the seconds. So 18 times 10 seconds is 180 seconds. Now we know that there are 60 seconds in a minute. Therefore, how many minutes is 180 seconds? Simple. 180 divided by 60 equals 3 minutes. So that's 3 minutes. And finally, the last step that we actually take is to add 72 minutes to the 3 minutes, which will give us 75 minutes. And that is the final answer. That's how long it would take to make 18 toy cars. Now, here's the thing. When we're trying to convert minutes into hours and minutes, there's a lot of confusion behind this and people get confused as to the process, and sometimes people get the wrong answer naturally. So let's just say 75 minutes. And if we're converting 75 minutes into minutes, what some people tend to do is they'd say, okay, I know that there are 60 minutes in an hour. Therefore, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the 75 and divide it by 60, which will give me 1.25. 1.25, which must mean 1 hour and 25 minutes. That's what most people think. But true or false? What do you think? Well, let's decode it, shall we? So we've got 75 minutes. 75 divided by 60 is 1.25. Now, what the important thing here is to understand that the 1 before the decimal place, that stands for the 1 whole hour. And the 0.25 after the decimal place, which is 0.25, that you multiply by 60 to get the time in minutes, okay? Because this is decimalized of an entire hour. Therefore, 0.25 times 60 equals 15 minutes. So in all, it's actually 1 hour and 15 minutes, not 1 hour, 25 minutes. Bear in mind, most of you are taking buses into college, some of you probably even using trains, and when you do so, you will come across timetables of buses and places and destinations in this manner that is on the PowerPoint in front of you. So if somebody was wanting to get onto on a bus from St. Paul's Cathedral at 8:34, and then they wanted to go all the way to Hyde Park, bear in mind we are going downwards. We are going from 8:34 to 8:46 at Tower of London, to the Tower Bridge 8:48, to the Shard 8:56. We are not going across. So that's one point of confusion for most people who haven't used timetables. We are always catching the bus and going downwards to the next destination. So if you need to get to a certain place by a certain time, you'd have to make sure that you catch the bus at the earliest opportunity, giving yourself plenty of time and making yourself um, comfortable to get to the next place in time. What I'd like everyone to do now, please, is complete the work on pages 6 to 7. So open up your workbooks and complete pages 6 to 7. Conversion graphs. A conversion graph is used to change one unit into another. This could be changing between miles and kilometers, pounds to a foreign currency, or the cost of a journey based on the number of miles traveled. Have a look here on the left hand side at this chart. Terry's taxis calculate the cost of a journey using the following conversion graph. So on the left hand side, you've got the cost in pounds, and along the bottom, so based upon how many miles the taxi has traveled, that is the cost that a person will have to pay. So on this graph, how much would a journey of 7 miles cost? So we look at the x-axis and we find out along the x-axis is miles, and where that line corresponds onto the y-axis, that is £5.50. So how much will it cost? £5.50. So if a journey cost 8, and equally we can do it the other way around, that if a journey cost £8, how many miles would you expect to have traveled? So we look at the 8 on the cost side, which is the y-axis, and where it corresponds to and hits the line exactly on the x-axis is 12 miles. So how long would that person normally have traveled? 12 miles, and that is your final answer. Let's do more of these type of questions, and if you open it up your workbook, you will notice that on page 9 there are more questions. I'd like you to all complete the work on page 9, please. So today we've covered the conversion of units, of lengths, weights, and liquid, and also time, and looked at time graphs, time charts. And what I'd like you to do as a plenary, scan the following QR code given by your tutor, or click on the URL sent by your tutor and answer all the questions for today. And then we can check whether we've met those outcomes or not.